Good morning and welcome to Blain's Morning Porridge. It's January 20th, 2026. This morning, corruption and justice, action required. And let's start with a quote. America may be blind, but the world will see who is involved and complicit. The difference between successful democratic economies and autocracy is that the rule of law works better. Autocracies tend towards corruption and inefficiency. Insider dealing and corruption is a fact of the financial markets, and punishing it is a matter of the enforcement of justice and the willingness to do so. Europe is acting over Epstein, but what's happening in America? Friday is traditionally the day that I get to have a rant. I can say what has to be said. Now, over the weekend, I'm going to be digging into the implications of Blue Owl gating its alternative funds and wondering and asking the question if that's the Bear Stearns Moment, warning of ructions ahead for the private markets. But this morning, let's talk about investment, corruption, and risk. Investment is an exceptionally complex business. There are multiple considerations in terms of the risk-reward profile of any deal. The probabilities of success versus the likelihood of misadventure must be checked and reconciled against contracts, credit, and data. Analysts dissect company accounts, statements, and information on the parties to the trade, and lawyers have become MVPs, most valuable players, because successful investments are built upon a framework of law and order. Now, while a gentleman's word may be worth something in terms of the credibility to open doors, and trust is fundamental in any deal discussions, without the backing of sound contracts, strong legal systems, and the enforcement of justice, you are just gambling versus human avarice. The strength of the judicial system is a critical support and consideration in any deal. Now, history shows that economies of nations with strong and fair judicial systems tend to perform more strongly than autocratic states, where the old adage, absolute power corrupts absolutely, oft proves to be the case, leading to widespread corruption and underperformance across the whole economy. Yesterday was a WTF day in the UK. It's not every day that a prince of the blood is dragged through Traitor's Gate. The news was dominated by the arrest of the royal formerly known as Prince Andrew. Apparently nothing else happened yesterday. Now, misconduct in public office is considered a great and unforgivable crime in the UK. The allegations that Mr. Mountbatten Windsor shared sensitive and confidential information on confidential meetings when he was the UK's trade envoy, morally entangling himself in convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein's web of sexual and financial corruption, is a profound embarrassment to the royal family. It's humiliating, but the UK can say that justice is being seen to be done, and if only it would be delivered as swiftly to the victims of the post office and haemophilia scandals. Now, when the younger brother of the head of state was arrested on his birthday, King Charles immediately came out with a statement. Let me state clearly, the law must take its course. And the Prime Minister chipped in with, nobody is above the law. There is a very high likelihood justice will be delivered, and the royal family has no choice but to be blind to it. Mountbatten Windsor will have his day in court, and it will likely go rough for him. He is now singularly alone in the world, and very unprepared for what may follow. The Princess Beatrice is said to remain close to him. Good on her for that. His ex-wife is as scuppered as he is, and it's unclear that anyone else stands for him. The degree from which he has fallen from grace is unparalleled in modern history. Now, Andrew was briefly a hero during the Falklands War and for a while caused hearts to flutter as Randy Andy, but by nature he was a rude and arrogant fool, suffering from an overwhelming sense of entitlement and demanding deference from all around him according to the people that knew him. As the overindulged favourite child, he became the classic spoilt second son, but lacking wealth and power, he bore grudges heavily and thus became a target for bad actors looking for actionable weakness. He was perfect for Jeffrey Epstein, who identified that Mountbatten's role as a trade envoy made him the kind of useful idiot he could control and manipulate through the levers of money and sex, hence the relationship between them. And multiple questions now follow yesterday's address. The question we all want answered is, who else did Epstein corrupt? That will be difficult because of the chaos around the promised release of heavily redacted files. You'd almost think that people were trying to hide something. Epstein was caught. Who else controls similar but better hidden webs of corruption? And how are we going to uncover these, because they undoubtedly exist? Mountbatten Windsor could well end up sewing mailbags at his brother's discretion. I foresee a great tragedy being written about him, and the key to the tragic characters in Shakespeare is they are all the authors of their own destruction. The takeaway is that in an open and just society, our faults are likely to be discovered and punished. That said, insider trading on information gleaned from networks has always been a feature of finance. I saw it in action in my early days in markets, how some people just knew, and in the scrambles to win allocations that occurred around lucrative Japanese equity warrant deals, and I recall a scandal involving a gory hunting accident at Swedish agency SEK. The fact that justice must be seen to be done is what matters. That's a reason to invest in the UK and wherever English law is primary. Scots law, which I once had a passing familiarity with, is just as strongly founded, and I can still cite Scottish case law, having memorised much of the infamous Logan Henderson for my exams. Now, it's going to be really interesting to see who else will be unveiled in Epstein's web as it's publicly unravelled. Already the scalps of Peter Mandelson and Jess Staley, ex of Barclays, have been nailed to the doors in Britain. A former Norwegian premier, Thorbjørn Jagland, has been arrested, and the French are trawling the redacted files for evidence of wrongdoing. They know who they're looking for. Across Europe, anyone named in the Epstein files, which is no proof of guilt, will be concerned as they faced raised reputational risks. Arrests are said to be imminent as new information comes to light from the files. Autocracy, however, is different, and you can probably guess where I'm going here. There has been plenty of noise in the USA, but after Attorney General Pam Bondi and the FBI said they'd found no evidence of wrongdoing, no one has been judicially challenged. That failure is variously ascribed to reasonable doubt on proof, time limitations, and sidebars like the fact that Epstein's original 2008 agreement granted immunity to potential co-conspirators. In Europe, the evidence that Mountbatten, Mandelson, and Jagland indulged in corruption was swiftly uncovered by investigative journalists in the redacted files. The same thing has not happened in the USA, raising a great suspicion that the swamp protects its own. And at the centre, of course, is the president himself. While we know the president said he severed links with Epstein over the poaching of Trump's Mar-a-Lago staff many years ago, there is plenty of evidence that they were previously close, and the records of their talks about women are legion. So it's not unreasonable to ask how close Trump and his multiple other names in the files were to Epstein, and if there is evidence of collusion, insider dealing, or common purpose, let's see it. Proving sexual crime requires very high burdens of proof, but evidence of financial wrongdoing, as has been uncovered in Europe, is a very effective way to initiate punishment. It's a version of the Al Capone solution. The Chicago gangster finally went to jail for tax evasion, not the multiple murders that he ordered, kidnappings, and other crimes. And it's also fair to wonder if there is any real intention to dig deep into the Epstein midden. What else might be exposed? Who has what to hide? Now, the USA has become a deeply polarized nation across multiple fronts in the last 10 years, and one of these is the rising controversy over the president's business entanglements, oft described by his detractors as grift. Now, there is a suspicion that he acts to deflect and distract from questions on his probity. Will he go to war with Iran to dodge questions on his own relationship with Epstein, or to obscure the likelihood Epstein was not the only puppet master sucking inside information from corrupt business webs? Was this morning's release of the UFO files yet another effort to distract? And it's also worth considering that Epstein undoubtedly was not the only bad actor of this modern financial age. He's infamous because he got caught. Who didn't? Now, Andrew Mountbatten will have a challenging time explaining why a Kazakh princeling bought his former home £3 million above the asking price. And the President of the USA has never really explained or addressed the rumours that Russians apparently overpaid and overvalued properties they financed for him. The President has form in this regard. Recall how Trump was found guilty of materially misrepresenting the values of properties he pledged as assets and had substantial penalties imposed upon him. Trump has effectively dodged the many cases outstanding against him, creating de facto presidential immunity, and these include crimes of a sexual nature. He was found liable in a civil trial of the digital rape of E. Jean Carroll and is contesting the nearly $90 million damages awarded against him. He was criminally convicted of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records to cover up $130,000 of hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels, a case that went to appeal and remains outstanding. And the undercurrent of grift around the president reflects ill upon the USA and its reputation for judicial enforcement. If the president can do wrong without correction, who else has their fingers in the till? Fish rot from the head down, and there are multiple areas that people should be concerned about. President Trump has undone many of the traditional separations of the state between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. By ignoring the checks and balances at the heart of the US Constitution, has he opened it to corruption? The president has also received multiple gifts that appear to be inducements from foreign nations to favour them. These range from the gift of a jumbo jet and a foreign power taking a silent 49% participation in his crypto businesses the very day before the inauguration, and that nation was subsequently given rights to purchase NVIDIA chips. And it goes right down to foreign delegations favouring Trump hotels on the advice of the administration. Is that corruption, or is it just simple human avarice? He makes the FBI stay in his hotels and charges them extra. Trump has also been accused of multiple pay-to-play scams, offering wealthy donors proximity as Mar-a-Lago members, or to sponsor parades or parties, or rewarding holders of his crypto meme coins. World Liberty Financial, his crypto venture, appears to be a corporation conceived solely to monetize Trump's political power by using crypto as the vector to channel wealth to him and his family. And Trump's version of diplomacy has pretty much dispensed with diplomats and is now dominated by his close friend Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner, and it's no secret that they are said to show no hesitancy wrapping personal deals around their roles as Trump's plenipotentiaries. The optics of Witkoff, who is said to have financed his property empire with Russian funds, running a peace treaty on Ukraine, looked terrible. And of course, Trump has been accused of selling pardons and favouring his political allies, while directing state agencies to investigate opposition politicians. If the President of the United States is entirely clean in regards to Epstein, then he should be enthusiastically demanding deeper investigations and prosecutions. Otherwise, it's very telling that Europe is doing so, but America is not. And to cite the great bard of Avon, there is something rotten in the state of Denmark, Horatio, but it's not Denmark that's rotten. I'm out of time. Have yourself a great weekend. I've got to run off, catch a train. In the meantime, you can read the Morning Porridge on www.morningporridge.com, and if you sign up, you'll get it delivered fresh to your inbox every morning. I'll be back on Monday, probably talking about the private credit markets. Thanks very much for your attention.